So tell me about One for the Road. I wouldn't think. I said earlier, I don't see how a person could get a book out of drunk driving, but you did. So.
Drunk driving's a topic that I got interested in because it seemed to me that it was so prevalent in this country, and it was such a terrible, potentially terrible crime where people die, and this happens 10,000 or more times a year, and it didn't seem to be causing the outrage that it should. And when I went back and did the research, I found that actually we're doing a much better job now, but earlier in the century, it was commonplace for people who drove drunk and actually killed people just to be sent on their way with a slap on the wrist. So we've been very lax in this country, for example, compared to other countries in trying to control drunk driving.
I know in New Mexico, where I spent part of the year, it's a huge problem. But the police there are really vigilant about it and set up for all summer long. They have these roadblocks and stuff, and they're fairly severe in their penalties and so on.
Yeah, it's much better now, and some states are better than others. Some states actually don't even use roadblocks, amazingly, even though they've been shown to be effective. But it's good that New Mexico is being proactive in that regard.
So my favorite places are the drive-in liquor stores.
Yeah, drive in and drive out.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy.
So what did you find out, some of the things?
Well, one of the most interesting things was that for years and years, the blood alcohol level that was legal in this country was 0.15, which means you could have up to 6 drinks on an empty stomach and be pretty much plastered, get stopped, and manage to get off and not convicted for drunk driving. It was incredible tolerance for this crime that went on for years and years.
Why, I wonder?
I think it had a lot to do with a bunch of things. One was prohibition, and we sort of reacted against prohibition by saying, look, we were too aggressive in trying to control alcohol, and now it's time to push the pendulum back the other way. And frankly, the alcohol industry and the restaurant industry have never wanted people to be too aggressive in treating that because they were going to lose business. So they've been pushed responsible drinking, but not much more than that.
Now, the legal limit has been lowered, right?
It has been lowered, and now in all states it's 0.08, but in other countries it's quite a bit lower.
And 0.08 is what?
0.08 is about, it depends on your size and how much you've eaten, but, it's about 3 or 4 drinks, which is a lot. And so in order, in fact, while I was working on the book, I did a little experiment, and my wife watched me, and I drank on an empty stomach and to try to find out how much it would take for me to drink and what I would be like to get to 0.08. It took me about 4 or 5 drinks, and well before I got to 0.08, I was in no condition to drive, but legally in this country, I could have.
Are you a drinker by social drinker? Or?
I'm a social drinker. And my doctor I have my glass of red wine at night to get my HDL up.
So you weren't totally immune from alcohol?
No.
Okay, so, wow. Well, what can be done other than what's being done now?
Well, I think we have to enforce the laws more tightly. If states like New Mexico are doing a particularly good job, we should use those states and other countries, by the way, as examples. So we should use roadblocks more, which we really call sobriety checkpoints, where police can stop drivers and check, because they're a very good deterrent and they stop people from driving drunk. We should use ignition interlocks more, where if you've been convicted of a DWI, you have to blow into like a breathalyzer device in your car before you can start it, and that's been shown to reduce rearrests for drunk driving by 2/3. So there's lots of effective things out there, but as a country, we're still too reluctant. We're still a little too libertarian to do those things, but to me it doesn't make any sense.
Talking with Dr. Barron Lerner, book's called One for the Road. You wrote a rather nice article about your experience at the ranch. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I wanted, after I got back from the ranch, to write about what it was like there. And my wife and I had an amazing time. I mean, it's an inspiring place. I went down and the kids are...
What did you expect when you...
Well,
before you got to...
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I mean, I knew I'd sort of be keeping an eye on the kids and making sure that the health was fine. But I'm not a pediatrician, so I don't hang out with kids with cancer very much, so I didn't quite know. And the kids were great, and they were not much of a challenge from a medical perspective. And, it was inspiring to see them work all day and understand what they were there for and start to think of themselves much, much more as normal kids.
It's a remarkable transformation that many of them make. And even after all these years, I mean, we've been doing it for 13 years now, I'm often surprised kids show up, and for some of the more remarkable stories of kids at the Imus Ranch are kids who show up and don't have, their prognosis is not good, and they're well aware of that, and they have as much courage as anybody on the planet. In fact, a girl said to my wife this summer, 16 years old, and brain tumor, I think. You'll see a lot of brain tumors now for some reason. Why is that, I wonder?
Maybe environmental exposure.
Yeah.
Cell phones? Ooh, maybe.
I won't hold a cell phone by my ear. You couldn't pay me to.
Yep.
But she hugged my wife. They all think my wife is their mother. And so, well, I don't think of her exactly like that. But and she said, if I don't die, can I come back?
Wow. Incredible. No, the kids are smart and they know what they're up against. But it's cool that they want to spend their time doing things like going to the ranch.
Do you find anybody, Dr. Baron Lerner, who's up at Columbia University Hospital? That's Columbia?
Medical center.
Yeah, okay. Where Dr. Aaron Katz is?
That is where he is, yes.
Another great doctor. What's the reception for people who want to talk about drunk driving? Is it good or no? Or seems like a subject that wouldn't be not a sexy subject for folks.
Yeah, it's different for different people. The people who obviously really want to talk about this are people who sometime in their lives have directly or indirectly experienced this. So I've met a lot of people while I've been working on this who either know someone who died or know someone who knows someone, and it stays with them their entire lives, and they just can't believe that someone has been killed or injured severely due to this. Other times it can be a little difficult. I mean, if you're at a party and, I go to parties and I was at one and I was making the joke of how about a breathalyzer at the door before you leave, like they do in Australia, for example. How about doing that? Maybe everybody doesn't want to get tested.
Yeah. Well, I hope this does well for you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Say hi to the judge for me.
I will do that.
Dr. Baron Lerner, One for the Road's the book. It's 12 minutes down till the hour.